All right, in today's demo, we're going to be taking a look at how to create some incredible 3D models inside of Adobe Illustrator. I know that's a totally weird sentence, whether you're coming from a 2D background or a 3D background, but this is the world. Everyone's moving to 3D, so let's get into it and take a look at the tools here. So to get started, I'm just going to start with my Illustrator file for my logo design and my branding. So I've got my color scheme, I've also got it over here in my CC libraries, and I've got my little logo image. I've gone ahead and copied and pasted it to a new page here. And what I'm going to do is just change the colors. I'm just going to use a couple of my base colors as the background and as the fill. And I'll show you why I'm doing that. It's because I'm about to convert this into being 3D objects. In order to do that, all I have to do is you can either go into Effects, 3D and Materials, and you have all of the attributes here, all of the selections here, or you can open up the 3D and Materials window, which I have open down here. You'll see four main 3D types. There's a plane, which is pretty straightforward. It's just taking your 2D graphic and you're putting it on a plane and revolving, and you can revolve it around in 3D space. A step further than that is extrusion. You can extrude the object, which will allow you to create a little bit of depth in there as well. So I can either create a lot of depth, I could add 100 units, or I can go crazy if I want to. But basically, in this particular case, I just want to add a slight little bit of depth to give it some geometry and just some feeling in the real world space. Right, select this again, take it back to like 50, just to give it a little bit of depth space. Great. So what else can I control about this? Well, as you can see down here, I've got the ability to rotate numerically. I have the ability to just select some default panels. I also have this little widget here in the middle that allows me to rotate it freely in the 3D space. Pretty cool, right? So, and you can also change your perspective. So this is like changing almost like the aperture of the lens and creating that. Once we have it positioned where we would like, and I'll go through the other steps here in a second, we can then hop into materials. By default, you have a default base material on it that's reading the colors that you have over here to the left. We also have all of these Adobe Substance materials that are down here that we can simply add. So if we want to add some gold to this, we can. If we want to add a little bit of this wax paint, we can. Really, whatever we want to do there. If I want to add a little bit of this wallpaper, awesome. In fact, I kind of like that. Let's keep that on there for now. So let's go back to this word, Adobe Substance material. What is Substance? So Substance 3D is Adobe's separate package of 3D tools that allow you to create models, add materials to those models, render them out in various applications. So these materials are being pulled from the Adobe Substance 3D asset library. If you don't know what that is, it is an online resource of 3D models, materials, and light sources. And with your subscription to Substance 3D, you have access to that. Now, what are Substance materials? There are thousands, over 10,000 materials on here, from anything from grounds to fabrics to metals and skin and everything in between. What they've done, Illustrator has put some of these in here by default. But if you have a Substance account, you can download your own and add them in as well. So what are some of like the main features of a Substance material? Well, the biggest one is that they're parametric. What that means is that they each come with custom slider controls, which I'll show you. I'm going to jump back into our object settings. I'm just going to expand this out a little bit just so you can see what's about to happen. So let's jump back into the material. So parametric just means lots of sliders. So the first one that comes in almost all of them is the repeat slider. So if I scale this down, you see the scale of the material gets bigger. If I go up, it's just more tiling, more individual components as we go around there. Okay. As you scroll down, you can obviously control the tiling in different directions. There's roughness. So if I want to make it super shiny, I can bring that down to 0. I also have control over things like the color of the triangles here. So if I want to make those like a bright red, I can. And if I also want to control the outline, I can do things like control the outline width and the outline color. So you really have the ability to customize these in any way that you want, which is really, really, really lovely. The other thing that's very handy is the ability to add graphics to this. So for that, I'm going to jump back to just a base material here, and we'll start there, just to avoid any of the tiling things that we have happening right now. So go back to this base material, and what I can do is I can actually add in we copy and paste this back in here again. And now I can take this graphic logo, go into our graphics tab, and add this in as a single graphic. I'll go ahead and make it so it's not so visible there. And then once I have this selected again, I can just say add the graphic on. And now I've got this interactive control for the graphic. So for that, I can slide this down, and you can see it appearing down here on the 3D object itself. Go ahead and scale this down so we can see it a little bit better. And now you can see that at where I'm positioning it, it's wrapping around the sides, it's looping up. I can put it on top, I can put it on the side, and the graphic just kind of sticks here to the side. One other cool thing that could be really beneficial is clicking this invisible geometry button. And what this does is it turns the main geometry off and allows me to place my graphic on a 3D space. So could be cool, could be beneficial for you all there. Let's hop back, let's go out of the graphic, go back into our materials, and I'm going to go ahead and put that wallpaper texture back on there. Okay, we've got that on there. We have the ability to control these textures. Now I want to talk about this next tab over, and this is lighting. So inside of lighting, make sure you have it, like if you ever see stuff grayed out, it's because you don't actually have it selected. So lighting by default, you can see we can do, we've got some presets. So if I want upper right lighting, which is the default one, I can go upper left, I can go straight to the right, I can do diffuse. You may notice that the diffuse doesn't look very good, the standard doesn't, like these look okay. This is because we have not activated ray tracing. Ray tracing is a mathematical calculation that allows us to simulate 3D space and basically how light works in 3D space and how it bounces around, how it creates shadows, all that stuff. In order to activate that, we just go over to this, we can activate it by using this button here, this render with ray tracing. And if we want the settings, we can uncheck this box and scroll down here, and we'll have some additional settings, specifically like what quality we're looking at. We'll keep it low just so it can work pretty quickly for now. All right, so this is what the low setting looks like. Cool. It's fine, but let's go ahead and make some shadows. So you just activate those down here. Whoa, that's looking a lot better. So now what I can do, and I'll go ahead and activate this again. Whoa, pretty rad, right? That's looking pretty sweet. So what I can do is now I can go in with shadows. I can change the lighting around a little bit and see what the different effects of that is. And I can go into some diffusion as well, which is really nice. The other thing that I really like is that in the shadows, you have the option of basically like the wall being back behind it or down below it. So you can make it more like it's sitting on top of something. I actually like it down below on this. So what I'm going to do is I'll use a standard lighting. Go ahead and bring this rotation around so it's on the front side of it. And then I like to add a little bit of ambient light to this just because it's, it's kind of a bright white material. And now I've got this working. I've got my logo in 3D space. I've got this cool texture on it. Awesome. I'm ready to roll. So let's take a look now at another example of, because we kind of jumped around a little bit and we looked at the plane with a extrude. Now I want to talk about inflate and revolve. So revolving. In order to revolve, it's a best use case to start with a Bezier curve. So I'll just go ahead and create one that's kind of like this. And then back up there, fine. Awesome. So what's going to happen here is once I have this selected, I can revolve this. And what I would like to do is take this shape and revolve it 360 degrees so I have like a nice bowl. When you click revolve, you'll see something happen. And that's not what I was expecting, right? This is going in the opposite direction. It looks more like an upside down table than what I wanted. What the heck is going on? That's because the offset direction is from the left. Illustrator doesn't know which way you want to revolve it, like which of the outside points is your outside point. So it defaults to the left. I actually like to do it to the right, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip that over to the right. And now we can see that it's now rotating around and creating a bowl in the opposite direction. If it's a little bit too big, it's totally fine. I can just go into my original path and just scale that down a little bit. And that'll scale down the bowl in its entirety. And then in order to move it, I select inside my box, but away from that little widget. And then I can go in. And if I want to just rotate this widget around, I can. All right, great. So now I've got my bowl and I want to make it look awesome. So in order to do that, I'll hop back into my materials. As I mentioned before, I can grab materials from my Substance 3D asset library. I love this Japanese pour spray. I use it a lot. It's because the functionality of it is pretty cool. So basically I can take this, I want to go ahead and repeat this out a little bit more, say 300, so no, oops. Right, that works out pretty well. The waves in the pattern are vertical. I guess it's okay, but if I wanted to, I can make them horizontal. I can scroll down here to where it says position, and I can rotate this. Say 90, and that feels a little bit upside down, so go ahead and go all the way around to 270, circle it around that way. So that's good if you want it that way, but we'll go ahead and keep it the original. I actually think it kind of works nicely this way. So now I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and we're going to go through some of these settings. So again, we've got the repeat. I can change the color of the pattern. Let's go and make something a little more dramatic than that. There we go. And now I can change the color of the background as well. So if I want to make that a little bit of a blue like that, I can do that. I can go in here and change the pattern of the motif. I can say fans and vines. I can go koi fish. I can go little curlies, anything that I want. Let me go switch this background color back to the lighter. I like that better. All right, great. You can sharpen the map because you can see it's a little bit diffused around the edges. So if I sharpen that up, it'll crystallize those in, or I can slide that all the way down and it gets a little bit more blurry. Roughness is just how shiny it is. And you can go through each one of these and set all of the individual parameters as you would like. But the thing that I really like about this is just the ability to switch around the patterns in a intuitive fashion. I'll go back to my waves. And one other thing to point out about these is that you have the ability to adjust the resolution. You can simply go in here and say, I want it to be 2K, which makes it render a little bit longer, but it makes it a much higher quality, which is lovely to do and have that flexibility as you're working. One other thing to point out, which I failed to mention, was that you can access the asset library directly by clicking this little button here. And what this does is this will open that website for you directly from Illustrator. So you don't have to remember the URL. All right, we got our bowl. Now it's time to move on to a little bit of lighting. Same deal. I want to make sure to turn on my shadows. I want to make sure to activate my renderer. I want to wait for that to load up. I want to make sure to place this down below the object. Let's go ahead and we'll increase the intensity up a little bit. And you know what? Let's go ahead and rotate this around to the front. In order to do this, I'm actually going to turn off my ray tracer for now because I know kind of what I want it to look like. I want it to come around here to the side. I can lower it down and kind of stretch out that shadow a little bit if I want. There's also the shadow bound setting. So if your shadow is kind of isn't expanding all the way that you want, you can increase that shadow bound and it'll keep everything inside the area. So there's no clipping. So I'll go ahead and activate my ray tracer again. Take a second to load that up. And I'm feeling like I'm probably going to want to adjust either the softness or the intensity of the ambient light. Because I don't want that to be too heavy and dark in there. So go ahead and turn that up a little bit. There we go. And I'll make the shadow a little bit softer too. All right, cool. And just like that, we're able to design and create a lovely 3D render all inside of Adobe Illustrator. All right, so you're probably wondering about this last button here, the inflate. For that one, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am not only going to just work inside of Illustrator, I'm actually going to take a 3D model from Illustrator and bring it over into Substance 3D Stage. For that, I'm going to do something a little more complex, a more complex vector design. So complex that I doubt I could do it myself because I am not a graphic artist. I grabbed some lowly Dumpling vector art from Adobe stock. All credits to the artist that created this, and I'm going to use that as my starting point. So I've isolated it down to just this one Dumpling, who is just my favorite. It is absolutely adorable. My nieces have named this Dumpling Little Bao Baos or Bowls or something like that. Love this little Dumpling. What I want to do is I want to turn this into a 3D Dumpling and render it inside of Substance. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of isolate what I actually need. So this outline looks great from a 2D design standpoint, but from a 3D standpoint, not exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this outer outline and just go ahead and delete that. This fake shadow that's in here too, I like it, but it's not going to translate that well into 3D space. So I'm just going to eliminate that too, and then just keep this simple design. So I really like this. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to kind of combine some of these elements. So I'm going to take these three I guess, eyebrows, wrinkles on the forehead on the top, and I'm going to hit Control 8, and that's going to combine those 3 vectors into one. Same thing with the eyes and the mouth. Oh, those are different groups, so I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm just going to do the eyes, and then I'll keep the mouth separate, and then I'll do the 2 little cheek things, and then the body is separate from that. Okay, now that I've got those where I want them, I just want to go ahead and start inflating. So inflating them is essentially like blowing them up like a balloon. By default, it's only one side, so I'll go ahead and inflate both sides because I want it to be a 3D object. I'll do that again for the eyes, the mouth, cheeks, and gotta be a better name than wrinkles. All right, cool. So we got those all inflated, and now we are ready to go. Like I said, I could continue to build this in Illustrator and make it look super cute, but I do want to export this to another software. So, okay, we are going to grab the dumpling itself. And now what I want to do is I want to work on exporting this. So what I'll do is I'll go up here to the top, say File, Export, Export for Screens, or use Control-Alt-E. This will bring up this asset panel. You'll either be on Artboard or Assets. I'm going to go ahead and just click Asset Export Panel, because that's going to break this off and give me like a separate one. Now what I can do is I can grab each one of these components and just click this little, button here. I can add that in, and I can grab these eyebrows again. Eyebrows, wrinkles on the forehead, the eyes, I'll add those, mouth, and cheeks. All right, cool. So all these are separate. They're all named Asset 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick rename on them here. All right, great. So I've got them all renamed. I've got dumpling body, wrinkles, eyes, mouth, and cheeks. You'll see why in just a minute why that's important. I'm going to change my format to OBJ. And now that I've got that all set, I'm going to go ahead and export all of these. So I'll go ahead and select all of them and click Export. It'll bring up the dialog box, and all I have to do is navigate to a spot for me to go ahead and create these. So I'll just create a dumplings folder here. But, you know, I'll name this properly. Little Miss Sparkle Valve. All right, cool. Select full. We're going to go ahead and export out these 3 models. And what we're going to be able to do is import that into Substance Stager. Now, if you're using Adobe Dimension, if you're using any other 3D application, you can certainly import these. OBJ is a universal file format. Stager is my personal choice because it plugs into all the other Substance 3D applications, and it's really fantastic. I should mention as well, if you would like to know more about Substance 3D Stager, feel free to check out an entire free course on Substance Stager in my YouTube channel. So you can just subscribe, head over to that playlist. I'll put the link down below. All right, now that we're in Stager, I can import my 3D models, my OBJ files. I can either go File, Import 3D Objects, go to Little Miss Sparkle Bow Bow, grab the body. It's going to be massive, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out by hitting the F key and place. And actually, you know, I'm going to leave that right there for now, and I'll show you why in just a second. I could also just drag and drop those in as well. But for me, I'm just going to Control I to import. I've got the body, I'm at the cheeks, the eyes, the mouth, and the wrinkles. Now, why did I go through the process of naming each of those? It's because I've got them here now. So I've got the names of each one in there, although these are just same group. I'm not quite sure why. All right, let's go ahead and grab everything. I'm going to go ahead and lift it up and place it directly on the ground. Now, you may notice that out of the gate, nothing is where it's supposed to be. It's totally fine. This is one of the things, I bet you there's a better way of doing this than I'm aware of right now, but each one of those objects exports at its own place. And so what I have to do is just kind of reposition those onto the object now. So I'll go ahead and do that. So just give me a second and I will fast forward through this. Okay, now I have Little Miss Sparkle Bow Bow looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and activate the ray tracer inside of Substance 3D Stager here and just see how she's looking. All right, she's looking really good. So one of the things that I really want to do is I want to make her look soft, like squishy soft. In order to do that, we need to use a slightly different shader on this character. For that, we're going to hop into our Materials tab, and I want to use this Subsurface shader. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that onto the body. Then you're going to see pretty quickly what's going on. So it takes longer to render, but the idea of the Subsurface shader is that it functions a lot like our skin or anything that's like soft and squishy, and you could it's almost like fleshy, like you want to squeeze it because a little bit of light is passing. And that's working out really, really well. And before I forget, after positioning all this, I do want to save this file. All right, so we've got a little Miss Sparkle Bow Bow laid out. Now, one of the things about this is, I'm going to turn my ray tracer back down again, is that if I change the base color of this, you're going to not see the color of her change very much. And that's because what's actually happening is that the color is being derived from what's going on underneath the surface. So that's inside the interior. So we've got translucency now turned all the way up. We've got subsurface on. And so really what I want to do is I just want to adjust the scattering color. And for her basic skin tone, I just want to give it a little bit of warmth there. Now for the eyes, I want to do the same thing, but I kind of want to do a little trick. I'm going to drag and drop this on here, which is going to give it the default color. And now inside of the scatter color, I want to select the brown from over here. So now we've got a subsurface on this eye and not on this eye. So I'm just going to select these other components, remove something. And I'm going to use our magic wand to say, for those things, I want that brown. And I'm going to do the same thing for the cheek here. So go ahead and slide that over. I think I missed one of these. This guy, I want that. So now all those materials are linked together. Same thing for the cheek. So I'll just drag and drop subsurface onto this cheek. Say I want it to be like that pink color, and awesome. And then for this cheek, magic dropper, that material. Great. So let's go ahead and take a look. See, these are, make sure these are, actually, you know what, I messed that up. This one, subsurface color. That, all right. And then same thing. This, make sure that is, all right, we are all good. Let's fire up this ray tracer and see how it's looking. Ooh, she is looking squishy. Amazing. All right, let's go ahead and turn that back off. The reason why I keep turning on and off the ray tracer is that it is labor intensive on my computer, and it's just allowing me like a quick visualization of it. So one of the things I do see is that I do want to make these eyebrows a little bit darker. Just make that a little bit richer there. And then for the body itself, I'm wondering if I should turn down the translucency a little bit, because I'm getting some artifacting around the edges, which isn't the worst, but I kind of, yeah, let me see if that helps a little bit. So for the body, I'm going to go down into our subsurface color and say, and turn down translucency to like 0.5. All right, that's feeling a little bit nicer to me. All right, so now how do I want to like stage out this character? How do I want to finish this off? For that, I am going to go ahead and just add a little room to this. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a little ground plane. Create some walls by duplicating that, by hitting Control D, sliding that over there, hitting Control D again, and rotating this. I'm holding down the Shift key so that the wall rotates in 15 degree increments, so I can get that nice 90-degree edge. All right, cool. All right, so now I've got this Balba. I'm gonna go ahead and group all of her together by selecting all the individual components and then just saying group and saying little Miss Sparkle Bob. There we go, rotate it around this way. Go ahead and turn on our ray tracing. Let's see how we're looking. Cool. This white surroundings isn't doing me any favors, so I want to create something a little bit darker, but maybe a little bit colorful at the same time. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and select the ground, go into the material, and grab the base color, and I just kind of want to make it pink like the cheeks. Let's get in on her. Ooh, she's looking good now. Ooh. So one of the things that makes her very cute is that she's very small. So we need to communicate that to the audience. So how do we do that? The best way for me to communicate small, cute scale is to add depth of field. So for that, I'm going to add a camera, go ahead and position this just like a little bit up into the side. You know, do we want her making eye contact with us? I'm not quite sure. We'll see how that looks. We'll adjust this here in just a second. But I'm going to make the focal length of the lens, we'll make it 85 millimeters. Keep the camera low, and we'll activate a little depth of field. Now, even though we can't see yet because we don't have the ray tracer up, I can still click set focal point and put that right in the middle of her. So when I do activate it, I know that she will always be in focus. So I'm going to turn it back on. And then for the blur amount, I'm going to scale that, jump that up to about 140. Because I kind of want to obliterate those like strong lines in the background there. The one thing that I am not super crazy about is it almost feels like she's pitched forward a little bit. So let me go ahead and turn off the ray tracer and let me try something. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select her and I'm just gonna go ahead and just rotate her back and up a little bit. You can look confident, looking off in the distance. She's dreaming big, she's got her whole future in front of her. All right, so now we've got her looking up and out. Now we can adjust the lighting a little bit because it's a little bit of a hot spot right in the middle over there. So I'm gonna kick the light over to the side a little bit. See how that looks. Oh, that's looking pretty. Look at that. I love this bounce light coming in on the back side of her. Just like a little bit in there. Oh man, that's looking really nice. What I'm gonna do now is I'm also just gonna add in I'm actually gonna add in a couple of 3D lights into this. I'm gonna throw in a couple of area lights. I'm just gonna drag this one on her screen left side, pull that out, actually switch out of the camera here. So I'm gonna pull this light over here and expand this. I want these to be nice and big and soft. Up there at that. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Move this out. We're going to turn off a ray tracer from back here. So those aren't influencing too much because their exposure isn't high enough yet. So I'm going to go ahead and increase those. All right, I've got the lighting looking the way I want. I've got the camera positioned, I think, the way I want. I just want to slide this over just a little bit. I changed it to a square format. Kind of emphasizes her round shape. So let me just slide that over just a little bit. All right, save this out. Time for a final render. For that, I'll hop into my render tab. I will click over into a high setting, make sure that we're rendering out as a PSD, make sure that we're rendering out to the folder that I want. And we've got the name of the file, we're doing the right camera, all good. Now I'm just gonna click render and I'm gonna fast forward through this part to get to the final step. All right, so now here we are. Our Little Miss Sparkle Bow Bow render is complete. In order to finish this off, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down here under the render status. There's 3 little dots here. We're gonna click it and say edit in Photoshop. This is gonna open our file in Photoshop, and I wanna show you why this is awesome. Because by default, Stager goes ahead, gives us a layered PSD file. So not only does it give us the render, it also gives us these puzzle mats, ID maps, crypto maps, whatever you wanna call them, that basically isolate different things. So if I want to go in here and be like, you know what, the eyes could actually be a little bit darker or something, I can just select the eyes, go back into the original layer, turn this off, and then I can just be like, you know, let's just go ahead and make the eyes just a little bit darker. Or something along those lines. And so now I have total control to make manipulations over specific parts of the image and get Little Miss Bow Bow looking as good as she possibly can. Look at this. This is like a political ad poster for her. She's running for state senate. She's ready to roll, take on that leadership role she was always destined for. Okay, one last thing that I want to show you all before finishing this off, and that is, what if we want to bring our little character, our Little Miss Bow Bow, into the real world? For that, I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these planes that I've made and the area lights. And for the camera, I want to go in here and turn off depth of field. Okay, so now what I want to do is, and I also want to take Little Miss Bow Bow and I want to make her a little bit smaller because I want to make her feel a little bit more realistic. So I'll go into the transform tab, go down to scale, and scale her down by about, a third. Okay, from here, what I want to do is go back into our camera, and inside the object, you'll see that we've got this background tab. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop in a background image. So for that, I can go into our Creative Cloud libraries. I actually have a background image in here that I want to use, and that's just this little kitchen scene. This is from Adobe stock. Again, nothing special. If you've taken my Stager course, you'll know what I'm about to do, and that is use one of the most amazing aspects of Substance Stager, and that's this magical match image button. So the match image button does three things. It sets the aspect ratio, like I made this square for that political poster for Little Miss Sparkle Bow Bow. But for this one, it's going to take the same aspect ratio of the background image. It's going to create lights. It's going to read that image. It's going to use Adobe's Sensei AI technology, the same AI that's in Photoshop, and understand what the situation is with that background and create lighting for it. And it's also going to match the camera perspective. So it's going to put the focal length and position of the camera exactly where the camera was in this scene. And now when you was actually photographed. Now when I turn the renderer on, you can see Little Miss Bow Bow is sitting right here on top of this tabletop and very nicely in our scene. And this one I'm actually going to, because I see the eyes are a little bit glowy, I'm going to go ahead and turn down the translucency on the eyes quite a bit here, just to get them a little bit smaller. And then we'll go ahead and take the color and grab the brown base color that we had before. Let's go check that out now. All right, that feels a little bit more in alignment to where she should be. All right, cool. So now I just want to go ahead and render this one out, and I'll show you what that looks like in Photoshop as well. All right, now that that's finished rendering and we've got it over here in Photoshop, you can see one other thing that's really cool. So not only do we additionally have those same ID mats, but we also have the CG element rendered separately from the background. So now that we're out of 3D space, back in our comfortable 2D world, we can do all of our Photoshop magic to integrate this guy. We can do things like add some vignetting and a little bit of glow on here to make the political portrait photo even better. So that's it. So that's a brief overview of using Adobe Illustrator to create some 3D models, either rendering them and creating some final images in Illustrator, or bringing them into Substance 3D Stager or Dimension or any other 3D application that you want to make a really final, polished, beautiful image.